Buddy Abroad is a collaborative educational board game for 3 to 8 players that was designed to build social ties and help prepare students for short-term travel abroad. To get started, each player grabs one of 8 passports that will act as their game board during play. Each passport has a different archetype within it that dictates a special item that the player has in their bag at all times. This will be important as the trip goes on. After each player has a passport, they will begin packing their bags with item tiles. Each player must pack the 7 required items listed on their packing list, followed by any additional items they'd like. Required items are red and have a solid black triangle in the lower right-hand corner of the tile, whereas optional items are light blue and have a plain background. You'll also notice some purple items with a solid white band through the middle. Those are souvenirs. Set those aside for a moment. Each player should fill their bags and pack strategically because the items they bring with them on the trip will make a lot of difference about how it goes. Once each player has packed their bag, they should grab a player pawn and set it on the center of the wellness meter at 0. Each player will get 2 action cards, one specific to their archetype and one random. Once the trip begins, these can be played once each at any time. Finally, the weekly tracker should be set in the middle of the table, with the group and personal cards in stacks beside it. You can also set the souvenirs and optional items in their own separate piles. Now it is time to take off for your trip. The next phase of the game involves players drawing group and personal cards to tell the story of what happens on their trip and how their wellness is impacted. Standard gameplay includes 7 days of travel, but if you're playing in an educational setting and need to adjust the days of travel to make the game take more or less time, you can indicate that ahead of time. Each day begins with a group card being drawn. Group cards impact all players, but happen before players leave the hotel, so players can still pack their bags for the day before drawing personal cards or having any impact to wellness applied. For example, if your group card says it's raining, before you take any impact to wellness, players can repack their backpacks and worn items for the day to make sure they're prepared for the rain. After players have repacked for the day, they cannot pack again until the following day's group card has been drawn. After a group card has been drawn for the day, set it in the weekly tracker. Once all players have packed their backpacks and worn items for the day, the group will go around and draw personal cards one by one. Much like group cards, each personal card helps to tell the story of what happens on the trip. Some things will be great, and some could be better. Read the card, see what happens, check if anything you packed might help you out, and adjust your player pawn on the wellness meter as directed. +1 wellness would mean moving 1 space to the right, -2 wellness would mean moving 2 spaces to the left, and so on. Sometimes you'll even need to roll a die to see what happens. Some events can be pretty unpredictable. The bottom of each card will have a base impact to wellness, then modifiers that show which items impact your wellness and which direction it should move. Please note that this only applies to items that are in your backpack or being worn currently. Items in the suitcase at the hotel will not help you as you draw personal cards. You can trade item tiles with the players to either side of you during the day, so if anyone next to you has something that can help you, and both of you have room to swap items, they can trade an item tile with you to help improve your outcome. Players may also share their permanent archetype-specific items in unlimited quantities to the players directly on either side of them, so those can be shared without swapping. Some personal cards will say Souvenir Opportunity and have a star icon on them. If you draw one of these cards, you can select any souvenir from the pile of souvenir tiles. This has no immediate benefit, but gives you +1 wellness at the end of your trip if you have room to bring it home. You do not need to have room in your backpack to obtain a souvenir, you just need to be able to pack it upon ending the trip. In groups of 5 or more, players will draw 1 personal card before moving on to the next day. In groups of 3 to 4, players will draw 2 personal cards before moving on to the next day. This repeats until players have concluded 7 days of gameplay, or however many they have designated before playing. If any player reaches -7 wellness during the trip, everyone else automatically loses 1 wellness. Remember, you win and lose as a team, so it's important to look out for each other and remember to use your action cards. After completing the final day of the trip, players must pack up to go home. Packing consists of players fitting all of their items into their backpack, worn items, and luggage. Every souvenir adds 1 wellness for the player who brings it back, while having to discard or leave a souvenir behind results in -2 wellness. Players can discard limited-use item tiles with no penalty, but optional item discards also result in -1 wellness. If every player packs their bags and makes it home at 1 wellness or above, the group wins.